radio and television services, and it's time now for the news at 10. We begin with the headlines. Health experts and other policymakers gather to discuss means of implementing the intervention dubbed Health in All Government Policies. Sifo Lower Basic School set to accept more pupils, this after donation of a one-story complex housing classrooms and other vital facilities by Gampura. Malian President Ibrahim Abubakar Keita calls for more international support following last week's deadly terror attack that claimed 22 lives. And UK shows solidarity with France. This comes after British Prime Minister announced the Royal Air Force will take part in airstrikes in Syria to fight against Islamic State. This and other stories coming ahead this half hour. I am Alhaj Abubakar Dabo. We thank you for joining us. The general public is hereby informed that His Excellency the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya A. J.J. Jammeh Babil Mansa, acting under the provisions of Section 71(1) and 71(3) of the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia, has appointed Mr. Suleiman Samba as Minister of Presidential Affairs, Secretary General and Head of the Civil Service, with effect from the 23rd November 2015. The President, His Excellency Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya A. J.J. Jammeh Babil Mansa, has pledged to transform the Gambia into a city-state by the year 2025, as well as provide the West Coast region with clean drinking water come 2020. The head of state was speaking at a mass meeting in Kalaji, described the reception accorded to him and entourage as one of the best since 1994. Aumamburu Jallo explains.
The President, His Excellency Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya Jammeh Babil Mansa, entered the West Coast region to a hero's welcome. Volleys of cannon marked the very moment the President crossed the iconic Bruman Bridge and was received by the Governor of the West Coast region, Aminata Sifai Hydra, who accompanied the Gambian leader who took time as customary to greet the land elders and local dignitaries. He was escorted to the main school grounds by a jubilant crowd of supporters who mounted one of the most colorful welcomes of this year's tour. The President looked visibly pleased with the turnout, which was carefully orchestrated by Governor Hydra and her people as a sign of their unshakable commitment to the Gambian leader. After the usual protocols, the dust settled for the various speakers to address the jubilant multitude of supporters who had waited patiently since morning. The chief of Fonyi Jarol, Kutubo Sanyang, who welcomed the President and entourage to the Fonyis, a region that has, politically speaking, always been a no-go area for the opposition. The head chief enumerated the various development projects that have transformed Fonyi over the past 21 years. Fonyi now boasts of a reliable electricity supply, something he described as unprecedented. He also commended the President for making education free and for the provision of health facilities for the people. The women mobilizer of the West Coast region, Aja Tomong Sanyang, said the provision of free education has relieved the women of a heavy burden, which until now weighed heavily on their shoulders, and promised the President of their continuous support. Mrs. Sanyang, however, noted that the West Coast region, unlike CRR and LRR, which are endowed with vast inland rice fields, is grappling with the challenges of salt intrusion, which has rendered many of the upland rice fields unproductive and unsuitable for large-scale rice production. She therefore called on the President to intervene in order to salvage and reclaim these fields to enable them to strengthen the Vision 2016 initiative. The President of the Cashew Farmers Association, Aliou Faye, said they are working closely with other stakeholders such as the GGC to promote cashew as a cash crop with a planned project that would see 300,000 seedlings grown across the country, particularly in the CRR and URR, where a pilot project to support the distribution of 75,000 seedlings has already begun. This, Faye added, will boost the agricultural sector in the Gambia with emphasis on diversification. The association currently boasts of 10,000 members, but seeks to increase this number with the help of government to enable them to set up a secretariat and a federation. The National Assembly member of Fonyi Jarol, Honorable Alhaji Jammeh, said the Vision 2016 has taken root in the region, but lamented the low harvest among certain crops due to the excessive rainfall this year. Nonetheless, the Fonyi Jarol NAM said they had registered modest gains in the Findi harvest, which they intend to sell to the President. The Governor of the West Coast region, Aminata Sifai Hydra, who looked visibly pleased with the reception accorded to the president, profusely thanked the people, particularly the chiefs, for the massive mobilization, which was well deserved, given what President Jammeh had done for the region. The Minister of Environment, Pa Usman Jajo, responding to appeals for water, said a team of experts will be dispatched to survey certain settlements with a view to identify possible areas for the construction of boreholes. He also urged farmers to reach out to officials of the NEMA project to help reclaim salt-infested rice fields. Speaking about the impact of logging in the region, the Environment Minister expressed concern with the indiscriminate felling down of trees, which fuels the lucrative charcoal trade in the Fonies. He warned that government will enforce the forestry regulations by prosecuting offenders and urge local officials and the youths to engage in the fight against logging. The President, His Excellency Sir Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya Jammeh Babili Mansa, was impressed with the large turnout of people, mostly youths and women, who came out to welcome him, describing it as unprecedented in the last 2 decades. The Gambian leader recalled his promise of a first-class road to the Fonies, which he had fulfilled, and promised them more developments in the next few years. Professor Jammeh said the year 2018 will be a watershed moment for the people of the West Coast region, stretching from Katong to Kalaji, as they will benefit from a modern water network or provide clean drinking water comparable to the one in Banjul. He further said that by the year 2025, the Gambia will be transformed into a city-state where no one will travel for more than a kilometer to access a health facility. Professor Jammeh lodged into a tirade against certain evil practices which threaten the social fabric of the Fonies, advising them to abandon witchcraft or else face dire consequences. Such malevolence, the President noted, has claimed the lives of many progressive young men who usually succumb to mysterious illnesses, and urged them to turn a new page by placing their beliefs firmly in God. The President later drove to his hometown of Kanilai, where, as usual, he was met with an equally colorful welcome by thousands of people who escorted his motorcade from the Kamfenda Junction to his compound, amidst jubilant chanting and singing of religious songs by various dairas. The tour is expected to continue this week with meetings in the Fonies and Combos. Momodo Jalo, GRTS News.
The Directorate of Health Promotion and Education has called a meeting to discuss the implementation of the intervention dubbed Health in All Government Policies. The 2-day convergence was meant to get the input of all relevant stakeholders and other policymakers. Aisha Keita has the details in this report.
The 2-day sensitization forum on the implementation of health in all policies, spearheaded by the Directorate of Health Promotion and Education, has finally wrapped up, providing participants basic knowledge on the importance of implementing health in all government policies in the Gambia.
Today marks a significant day in our efforts to move the agenda of putting health in all policies of government. This has come as a result of the Helsinki Declaration on Health Promotion in 2013. This is an approach to public policy across sectors, so that systematically takes into account the health implications of decisions that are made and seek synergies and avoid harmful health impacts in order to improve the population health and health equity.
This health in all policy approach is a new terminology, is a new concept, and all the different countries are learning from it. But we are happy that in the Gambia, we already have strong structures and strong committees. So we have a background where we can stand from. So now all we need to do is to absorb these new terms and then use it in what we already have to try and ensure there is better health for all the Gambians.
Having dealt with a series of issues regarding the implementation of health in all the policies, the training is said to have fully prepared them to deal with the issue at hand.
For the 2 days period, I have been able to learn a lot of new things. Together, all of us were able to access a lot of the important concepts and the necessity of implementing this very important concept.
As a point of redress, policymakers have a bigger role to play to help in putting forward the implementation of health in all policy documents, and this sensitization is said to be a step in the right direction. Participants have assured their continuous commitment in fulfilling their duties.
You are lucky to have us, because from now on, I am sure a good majority, if not all of us, are going to be advocates of this approach. We are going to promulgate the ideas into our regions and all the constituents therein, primarily, more importantly, our local government system.
We rest assured we will serve as role models at our respective areas, and then we will give you the fullest support, because supporting you is not only limited to supporting you, but we are actually supporting ourselves.
As they leave the confines of the gathering to their various destinations, knowledge and experience gathered is expected to serve as a springboard to help the Directorate of Health Promotion in their quest to improve the health condition of the citizenry. Aissatou Keita, GRTS.
Sifo Law Basic School has additional 8 new classrooms, a computer laboratory, library, and a multi-purpose hall. The new facilities are contained in a new one-story block constructed by Gampura and the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. Janke Toure tells us more.
It was a joyous moment for the people of Sifo as they received this noble gesture. The inauguration of this gigantic building by 2 prominent philanthropists, John and Maureen Scotland, formed part of their quest to serve humanity. Worth over $1.5 million, the newly inaugurated facility, which contained an 8-classroom story building, computer lab, and a library, comes as a major infrastructural boost. Speaking on behalf of the village head, Nuha Demba thanked the couple John and Maureen Scotland for such a magnificent building. He assured their benefactors that this new facility will be properly managed. In her remarks, the headmistress of the school, Sunkari Sanyang, commended the good job by the philanthropists. For her, the constructions of this new building came at a time when they were facing difficulties brought about by the demolition of 4 of their classrooms.
This new building will definitely reduce the great number of classes coming in the afternoon, if not all. I therefore thank the leadership through Moxie for providing us with human resources. I must say a big thank to you, to myself, through whose cooperation had worked hard to our dream come to reality.
I want to thank Mr. President for giving us the opportunity to build a school like this in rural areas. The people of Oklahoma, thank you very much. And most of all, the normal, ordinary people from Sifu who came here to help every day, every afternoon, every evening. Thank you very, very, very much for building this great school.
The guest speaker at the occasion was Babukar Boy, Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. While underscoring the importance of education, he thanked the sponsors for helping the needy.
As human beings, irrespective of which religion we belong to, if we want to develop here, and those of us who believe in the hereafter, education should be the foundation for that.
I want to thank a number of people which have helped to realize the school building. First of all, Mr. and Mrs. Carter of the MSA Foundation, which have financed this beautiful building. Without them, this building was not realized. So, I will ask you to give them a big applause.
Jan Scottin, the philanthropist, explained how this construction project came about.
And we noticed that the Kamalupa Foundation and Ms. Murderveld were doing a very good job here. But we also noticed that there was a great need for extra classrooms at the primary school here. Last year we were able to visit this place. We saw that construction has been started. Today is the first time that we see the new building, and we must say a big applause for Mr. Papa Omar, the construction of the building, and the man who guided him, Mr. Herb Lemus.
Certificates were presented to John and Maureen, among others, by Young People Without Borders as a token of appreciation, as well as staging of cultural performances. These facilities provided to the people of Sifo came at a time when significant inroads are being made in making basic education accessible to all and sundry. Janke Ture, GRTS News.
We'll now take our first break. The news continues right after. Welcome back. At least 22 people have been killed in a Mali hotel attack. Malian president is requesting for more international help. Meanwhile, UN forces began patrolling the streets of the capital Bamako after the incident on Friday. CNN's David McKenzie reports one of the survivors recalled the deadly attack.
Been harrowing stories of survival through the hours that they waited here to try and get rescued by the security forces that were coming through. But I just actually spoke to the president of Mali, President Keita. He was here at the Radisson Hotel behind me, touring the scene with the president of Benin, another important West African country. I asked him, what is Mali going to do about the situation, and are they requesting more international help? He told me, yes, this is something they are going to try and stamp out, but they can't do it without the help of the US, Europe, and others. There does seem to be an added impetus by West African nations to band together as well as link in with their allies to try stamp out Islamic terror in this region. I spoke to a senior member of the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta who was here trying to help set up a disease center. She said that she was stuck in a room waiting to be rescued and hoping she wouldn't be killed.
I emailed my husband and I said something like, there is something going on and I want you to know that I love you. And then a few hours later, when the fire down the hallway, I wrote another email and I said, I do believe there are shooters here, and if I don't make it, I want you to know I love you and my family and my CDC, but I am coming home. I do this because I love doing this work, and where we are in the world, that we need to continue on.
Kathy, a senior official from the CDC said that is secret code that they communicated to them from the U.S. security agents, so when someone who was a friendly came outside the door, they would know. She said if she hadn't had that training, barricading herself behind bags, locking the door, not going even when someone knocked, she said she might have been killed. She was very emotional, Christy, when she told me about the others who were here who lost her life, but she says she's going to come back to Mali and finish her work.
It's been described as a show of solidarity with France, as Prime Minister David Cameron holds talk with François Hollande, hoping that his country will take part in airstrikes against the Islamic State. More in this DWTV report.
First of all, something very concrete. He offered France to the use of the Royal Air Force bases in Cyprus. David Cameron is also hoping that Britain will take part in airstrikes against ISIS in Syria. That's something that has long been controversy in Britain, and the Labour opposition has signalled now that they might be giving in to David Cameron's wish to actually continue with airstrikes in Syria. So they both are hoping to build an international coalition, and David Cameron has said that he wants to show that he stands shoulder to shoulder with France and with François Hollande. The military response is something that's very much needed. I think this is what French people feel as a first response to all this carnage. But then, of course, people are pointing out, and François Hollande himself has acknowledged that there are deep underlying problems in French society. There's a segregation of the poor. There are the banlieues where people are almost have no chance of coming out. And he has acknowledged after the attacks on Charlie Hebdo that this is a problem, and he has vowed to change it. But people are, of course, saying this has been known for years, maybe even decades. Why has nothing or not enough been done to solve these problems?
Thousands of people gathered at St. Michael's Church in Hamburg to pay tribute to Germany's former statesman Helmut Schmidt, who served as Chancellor for West Germany from 1974 to 1982. The statesman, whose legacy lies in his virtue, has been described as one of Germany's best-loved political figures. More in this DWTV report.
Farewell to a remarkable statesman. In a moving funeral ceremony in Hamburg's St. Michael's Church, the German government and 1,800 guests paid their last respects to former German Chancellor Helmut Schmidt. Among the mourners were close political friends like former French President Valéry Giscard d'Estaing and the former US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. Kissinger described Schmidt in a very personal speech as a pillar in his life and a close friend, a statesman whose legacy lies in his virtues. Over the decades, he gave the word legacy a new significance. He followed the dictates not only of his office, but even more so of his conscience. In a certain way, he became the conscience of the world. Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel called her predecessor an authority who proved his mettle on several occasions. He was always aware of the risk of failure, even if it meant losing his office as Chancellor. In the end, his courage and his willingness to stand firm for his beliefs and accept the consequences brought him our respect up to this very day.
Die Helmut Schmidt Achtung und Respekt bis heute eintrugen.
Hamburg's Mayor Olaf Scholz prized Schmidt as one of the greatest and most honorable sons of the city of Hamburg. We have lost a giant today, which he was as a politician and as a human being. This loss will leave a blank space, a loss we will sense for a long time. After the state ceremony, thousands of citizens joined the funeral procession to bid their farewell to Helmut Schmidt.
We'll now take our second break. And over now to sports. FIFA's women football instructor Hope Powell has concluded a high-level training course for top local female coaches from across the country. The former coach of the England women's football team was accorded an emotional farewell at the end of her training seminar. Mohamed Jallow was at the FIFA Goal Project Center in Yundum, and he has this report.
An emotionally charged farewell song for Hope Patricia Powell, FIFA technical instructor who spent 5 days training these women's football coaches in the recently concluded FIFA Level 2 technical training course for women coaches in the Gambia. The 5-day training held at the National Technical Training Center was jointly organized by World Football Governing Body FIFA and the Gambia Football Federation. The participants, drawn from women's football clubs and the regional football associations, had their knowledge of the game broadened from the training of the hugely experienced FIFA instructor. The 48-year-old English trainer has a vast experience and knowledge of the women's game. Having had a glittering career as a footballer for both club and country, and former coach of the England women's football team from 1998 to 2013, and the coach of the Great Britain women's Olympic football team at the 2012 Olympic Games. Speaking at the end of the training, Powell reminded the participants of FIFA's massive investment in developing the women's game worldwide.
There's a few things I want to say. FIFA do a lot of work trying to develop more female coaches, more female leaders in women's football. There's currently a leadership development program which Senibu is part of, and I know she's trying to implement some strategies, some concepts that really raises the profile of the women's game. And that's really important. It's how we embrace more women, not just in Africa, but throughout the whole world, to be true leaders in women's football.
The former England vice captain, who admitted having a good time with her trainees, challenged the young coaches to put in extra efforts in their career developments.
I implore you, the decision makers, to help elevate women's football further, number one. Number two, I really want to thank you, the participants. I think you've done really well to a point. I think you can achieve so much more. I think one thing I would say is that this is just the beginning of your journey. I know some of you did the first instructor's course. I think you have to continue your learning. You won't become the best coaches in the world after a five-day program. Determination, and if you really want to be a coach, you will have to start doing some self-learning.
With coaches playing a pivotal role in football development, educating these young coaches will certainly impact meaningfully on women's football, but only if the knowledge gained from this training course is properly utilized. For the participants who were certificated for successfully completing the FIFA Level 2 technical training course, there is no doubt they are loaded with new coaching skills.
Training female coaches to take up what belongs to them because it belongs to us. We only see males coaching in female teams. Now we want to change that. We take care of what belongs to us. So this course is very important in the development of the Gambian football, because if you have to take care of what belongs to you, you will take a good care of it rather than someone taking care of it for you.
I'm having a very young and talented team. The knowledge that I gain from here, I will try to share with them so that they can at least develop their skills.
As they pack their bags and leave the National Technical Training Center, they expect to come back sooner or later for the advanced level. But in the meantime, they have to go back to their various clubs and regions to implement their new coaching skills. Mohamed S. Jallo, GRT Sports.
It's time now for the weather report, courtesy of the Central Forecast Office.
The Gambia is endowed with a wonderful landscape full of baobab trees. Like its Cape Point in Bakau, it is one of the most exotic sceneries in the world. The baobab tree is a symbol of resilience, wisdom, and resourcefulness. For the baobab tree provides good food in times of hunger, rents its bark for medications, and its sap for glue. In the Gambia, there is a company like the baobab tree, 100% African and purely Gambian in all aspects. In know-how, design, value, capital, and management. That company is Elton. Elton, employing hundreds of Gambians and proudly associating itself with development in the Gambia. Elton, side by side with the Gambia.
Good evening, viewers, and welcome to the weather forecast. Warm, sunny, and dry atmosphere affected the country during the past 24 hours. And for the satellite image shows convective cloud over Mali, Lagos, over part of central and southern part of Africa. Tonight, the weather is expected to be partly cloudy and fairly warm, while for the day tomorrow, the weather is expected to be cool in the morning, becoming sunny, dry, and warm in the afternoon. Surface wind will mainly be northerly in direction, and the speed will vary between 5 and 10 kilometers per hour. Minimum temperatures across the country will be 21 degrees Celsius over the Greater Banjul, 20 over West Coast, 19 over North Bank, 18 over Lower River, and 15 over Central and Upper River region. And for the maximum temperatures will be 32 degrees Celsius over the Greater Banjul, 33 over West Coast, 34 over North Bank, Lower River, and Central River region, while 35 over Upper River region. Low tide will be 0.3 meter at 2 a.m. and 0.1 meter at 2 p.m. High tide will be 1.7 meter at 8 a.m. and 1.8 meter at 9 p.m. Wave will be 1 to 2 meter meterly swells. The sun will rise at 12 minutes after 7 in the morning and set at 18:33 in the evening. We thank you for watching and good night.
And before we take leave of you, a recap of these major stories. Health experts and other policymakers have gathered to discuss means of implementing the intervention dubbed Health in All Government Policies. Sifolo Basic School is set to accept more pupils. This after the donation of a one-story complex housing classrooms and other vital facilities by Gampura. Malian President Ibrahim Abubakar Keita has called for more international support following last week's deadly terror attack that claimed 22 lives. And UK is showing solidarity with France. This comes after British Prime Minister announced the Royal Air Force will take part in airstrikes in Syria to fight against Islamic State. That was all in this edition of the news. Thanks for the pleasure of your company. Stay tuned and enjoy the rest of our interesting programs.